Hey everyone, how you doing today? As promised in our daily financial news and as scheduled weekly, we start off our expert series with Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. I think we're going to tackle a topic you and I have never talked about in this first of three videos. And that is, you know what? We talk about investors all the time, at least in my space of residential. Investors make up 30 to 35% of home purchases. Why don't we flip the script, talk about the other 65% today? What advice would you give first-time home buyers, owner-occupant buyers in 2021? We just saw existing home sales actually down 6% month on month, but up 9% year on year. But the real twist here is inventory record low, 2 month supply, 30% drop. So let's talk to the owner occupants here. What kind of advice? I know it's an open-ended question. We'll probably bounce around this one. But when I ask advice for first-time home buyers, what do you think? What hits you?
So, it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, housing prices are at a peak right now. Demand is down. I mean, demand is up, inventory's down, prices are at all-time highs. Okay. So your options are limited in what you can choose. So what I would say is, if you wait a little while, prices will come down, interest rates are on the rise. So your financing might be a little bit more expensive, but not exponentially more expensive than what you can gain by potentially waiting. So what it's going to boil down to is if you can wait. If you're going to be in a home long term, you're looking for, to purchase for a long term solution, it's probably best to wait it out because you're probably not going to find the house you want, where you want, with what you want, just because your options are so limited right now and prices are kind of through the roof. But at the end of the day, if you put interest rates back where they were 3-4 years ago at 5%, that and lower house prices by 20 or 30%, the cost of the financing far outweighs the price point on houses right now. So you can buy at the peak and you'll be okay, because interest rates are so low right now. I mean, first time home buyers, you can still get 5% down to,
Mm-hmm.
0.75% interest. So, I mean, it's almost free money.
Right.
So that's why so many people are jumping on that bandwagon. But things will turn. It always does. The housing market's always up and down. Interest rates will rise, values will come down, supply will start building again, and it'll be a buyer's market. So
Yeah.
we always see these cycles. We'll see it again. So if you can wait, it might be a better time to rent right now and wait for the right house at the right, price with the right things you're looking for to come along. But if you have to have a house and you have to have a yard and you just want one,
Mhm.
then, interest rates are so low right now, it's kind of a wash.
Yeah. I think there's actually, this will be one of the first videos we kind of disagree a little bit, but we'll get into that in a minute. I think there's a lot of things you said in there I totally agree with. First off, with inventory where it is today, the chance of finding what I'll call your forever home, right? The home that you're going to stay in comfortably for 10 years that has everything you want, it's tough. Just the numbers bear it out, right? We're record low inventories and falling. So again, I think if you find your forever home and really the 10-year mark is what it is for me. If you're going to stay there 10 years, right? You have kids, for example, going into kindergarten and your vision is for them to graduate high school in that school district, then it really doesn't matter. You're going to be there long enough. The cycle will be up and down and get fixed rate debt, good to go. The other thing I'll say in that is many markets, actually I live in one, the Bay Area, and there are others. There are times where unquestionably it makes sense to just rent. And I think this is one of those times in the Bay Area. We are seeing, and I talk to real estate agents a lot because, the YouTube channel helps with that. And more Bay Area real estate agents are calling me or emailing me or even DMing me now saying people are paying 150K over asking, waiving conditions, all cash. There's so much money in the system now. It is almost close to the frenzy I felt in 06. Not quite as crazy, but it's close.
Yeah.
It's close. I never thought
Now,
we'd get back to that. Go ahead.
a lot of those buyers are probably at the higher end, probably cash. So
Mhm.
what we started out with was first-time home buyers.
Mhm.
So remember, that's not a first-time home buyer. They're
Well,
not
it's a
going in
first-time
bidding
home buyer in the Bay Area, unfortunately.
maybe in the Bay Area, but
Yeah.
it's not entry-level
Correct.
first-time home buyer.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
correct.
not who we're talking about, who we're talking to.
Fair
It's a
enough.
very different animal
Mhm.
when you're a cash buyer and you can pay whatever you want and it doesn't matter.
Doesn't
So
matter, right?
people going to San Francisco that are bidding houses up 150, 200,000 bucks, those are $1 million plus houses.
Yeah.
They're paying cash. It's not moving the needle on their balance sheet. So that's a whole different conversation
Hmm.
than talking about somebody who's leaving an apartment, young family, they're making 100 grand a year,
Hmm.
maybe 200 grand a year,
Hmm.
and they're looking to buy that two, three, $500,000 house. Very different market,
Hmm.
very different conversation.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the timing aspect, right? Because you've said this a couple of times, and I just want to kind of get some upper and lower bounds on it. Um, you're basically very strongly of the opinion, hey, interest rates go from 3 to 5%. That is going to impact prices. It may not be immediate, but the price elasticity will weaken and they will fall from where they are today. Is that a
It'll be
fair summary of
immediate.
your thought? Oh, it'll be
Oh
immediate.
yeah,
Oh,
it'll be immediate. Yes, I mean, even 1%. I mean, you get up to 4%, you're going to
right.
see immediately. You're going to see pushback because again, it's all based on affordability at
Yep.
certain levels,
Yeah.
right?
So
So
yeah,
still
I'm gonna
that San
bet.
Francisco ultra competitive
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar house different.
Yes.
But if
Yeah.
you're making 100 grand a year and your house purchase is based on your income, which is basically they say 30-35% of your gross income is what lenders use
Yeah.
to qualify you for a payment.
Yep.
Okay, so if you're making 100 grand a year, that means you have 35,000 a year, that you can spend on a mortgage payment.
Yeah.
That's how the lenders use. Now,
Yeah.
as a buyer, you need to be looking at your net income, what your
Hmm.
take home is,
Oh yeah.
not what your gross is, and base it on that. And 30% is even pushing it. If you want to spend a full third of your net income on your mortgage payment, that's a good chunk of your income out the door before you do anything else. So
Yeah.
I like to see it a little bit less at 20-25%,
For sure.
but that's where it makes the difference is in
Yeah.
that
That
range,
margin. Yeah.
and that's that 1%. I mean, if you go from 3 to 4%, all of a sudden that $500,000 house is now, 450.
Yeah, so my experience says it's not immediate. Certainly, and I don't know what immediate means. Is it 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 1 quarter, a year? I don't know. It's we are in such a demand supply imbalance right now, right? Again, just look at and again, it's always hard nationally. Every market is different. You and I both know that.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening in, I don't know, Huntsville, Alabama is different than Boise, Idaho, for example. So it's really hard to do this. But I think in general, we've already seen rates on the 30 go up about almost 0.5%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost, right? And if the logic holds, that should mean prices should fall 5%, right? If the whole 1% is 10%, that means half a point would be 5%. And you're not going to have that. And yes, the affordability is hit. Payments are already up $70 a month. I did the math today on a 300K house, or I should say a 300K loan, $70. Uh, it is absolutely going to pull demand out. We are going to get more no answers. That makes renters, I'm happy. Where I do think the issue is, I don't think it's going to be 4%. I think game changing, game over, market stops is 5. I think we
Yeah.
we've artificially moved rates lower. The whole don't bet against the Fed, all of that. It has created a once in a lifetime tsunami of demand. And even if you whack the demand in half, you still have buyers exceeding supply, right? Even with the affordability thing. So I think we're in a very unusual time. I don't think the move from 3 to 4 is going to stop the market at all. It may slow it down, but you go 4 to 5, game over, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's your velocity play. So that 3 to 4 is where you start to see supply stack up a little bit,
A little
demand
bit.
drop a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because people are going to say, well, let's wait till the rates come back down again. And if the
Yeah.
rates don't come back down, they continue to go up. It just escalates. And then what happens is, like when I say instant, yeah, like what you're saying, a quarter or two seems like overnight when you
Mm-hmm.
get to the end of that quarter or two.
Yeah.
And that's really what happens. I mean, it slowly sneaks up, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's for sale signs everywhere. Days on market goes up. Sellers are dropping prices. You see list price to sale price ratios grow. So it's really interesting. But like you said, it's different markets. I mean, right now they're still giving houses away in certain cities where they can't get anybody to move in.
Yeah.
Houses are vacant. People have left. And it's the city just wants them taken care of. And I'm talking about places like Danville, Virginia, Detroit, Michigan. There's areas like that where they're trying to spur,
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to,
Recovery.
rejuvenate the area
Yeah.
and bring people back in. They'll give you property.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing, if we go back to kind of first time homeowner occupants, the other advice I have for them is a lot of them aren't seeing what they want in existing home sales, right? See the numbers
Mm-hmm.
today. So they're going new build. New build's probably the toughest thing I've seen today. Cause again, first off, builders are very different than 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, they would build huge tracts and they would build before they bought. Now they build only after purchase or after contract and all of that, right? No more, not a lot of spec building. There's some, but the size is much smaller. So those whole new build, you got interest rate risk that you really have to calculate today, right? If you go in, you plunk down, you see the house you want, you pick your finishings, all of that, but it takes 6 months to build. There's quite a bit of interest rate risk in that. And you know, if you
Well,
pull
there
it,
is on the short-term construction because that's what fluctuates, but there's
Mhm.
caps on that, so it only can go up so much. But generally, if you're doing a construction to perm loan, then you're locking your rate, so it doesn't matter.
I'm
So
talking
you're
about
locking in.
I'm not talking about the developer where you are. I'm talking about, you know, Susan and Mark walking through different open houses and going, "Oh, I want that one."
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
Okay.
their loan product is
Mhm.
a rate. So if you're a buyer, you walk
Mhm.
into a neighborhood, you sign a contract on a house, you're going to
Okay.
lock your rate today.
Oh.
So that permanent mortgage rate is locked. Doesn't matter what it does. You've bought
Mm.
in, you've locked. What fluctuates is that construction interest, whoever that loan is on. If the
Mm.
developer is carrying the construction loan, they're covering it. If you, the borrower, if you get any construction to perm, you cover that interest. But your permanent loan, the rate is locked at the day you commit to that loan and you
Mm.
start that project. Just like a refinance, you know, you do a
Okay.
rate lock on a refinance or a purchase money mortgage,
Mm.
you're not closing for 30, 45 days,
Yeah.
but you're locking your rate in today.
Yeah. So there must be a different product out there because a lot of my viewers are calling me and reaching out to me saying, "Hey, my builder, I've picked my home. My builder says it won't be done for 6 months, and Bank of America or whoever it is won't lock me in until we're 90 days out." So you know,
Yeah.
maybe there's
So
different loan products out there. So for those
yeah,
people that
different banks have different products. You have a mortgage guy on, he would be a good one to ask
I will
about
ask
that.
them
But
Wednesday. Yep.
yeah, there's different. Yeah. Some of them want 90 days. Some of them want 30 days. Some of them will lock you in for the whole thing.
Okay.
And you can buy a rate lock,
You
by
could
the
absolutely
way.
buy a rate
So
lock. Yeah, you could
yes.
buy a rate lock. Yeah.
Yeah.
That costs money. That's not free usually.
Yeah. But you know, you got to look at, you know, it's a financial calculation. For a couple
Sure.
grand, you can lock it in. You don't have to worry about it, you know?
Yeah, that's sleeping at night. Yeah, that would be good.
Mhm.
The other thing I think we talked about earlier that I want to put out there again is the fear of missing out. Is frankly most of the time dangerous, right? When you find yourself or your family just we really are having that fear of missing out. You're looking at a list price and adding 5 or 10 grand. You're waiving conditions. You know, really, you know, it's hard in the moment, but fear of missing out certainly has never worked for me in real estate or stocks, and it's dangerous. Um, I know it's hard for people, right? It's their home, but when you see that, or you see people kind of vibrating at that frequency, and they
Yeah.
really have fear of missing out, what do you want to tell them?
You know, that's when you make mistakes, you know.
Yeah.
So when you feel like you have to have something, that's when you've lost all your power to negotiate. That's when you've lost a lot of your rational thought processes and you make mistakes. Now, again, if you got to have a house, you got to have a house. So it is what it is. And if you can afford it, you can afford it.
Yep.
But, you know, I tell you who I feel bad for is like my mom just sold her house. I think I told you it went on the market on a Friday in
Yeah.
Virginia Beach, Virginia. You know, multiple offers over the weekend, went for, 5% more than she was asking
Wow.
in a matter of a couple of days. And one of the contenders had a VA loan, and they bid way over asking, and they've been missing out on houses because nobody will take them because it's contingent upon a VA loan. And with VA loans, appraisals can be an issue. These other things. I felt
Inspections.
bad
Yeah.
for them,
Yeah.
and they're like, man, we keep missing out on these houses. So there's a fear of missing out. Then there's the actual reality that you're missing deals because you're not a cash buyer. And that's who my mom sold to. She sold to a cash buyer, highest price. The dude's closing in like 3 weeks, and it's
Yeah.
like, you can't, how do you turn that down in this market?
Yeah, you're right. I actually hadn't thought about that. Yeah, but yeah, VA loans, right? 0% down. They have all those inspections.
Mhm.
It's a great product. I'm glad we have it, and veterans such as yourself deserve those products. All good. But again, the seller,
Mhm.
right? You have to realize that as the seller, a VA loan, I don't know, 5% more than a cash buyer, probably not going to happen most of the time because
Mhm.
VA
Yeah.
loans, lots of conditions. Inspections, they are very they go through it with a fine tooth comb, as they should. It's 100% loan
Mhm.
sometimes. So yeah, you're right. That's
It's not
I
the
feel
right
bad.
market for that. So,
Yeah.
the fear of missing out, and people will get caught in the trap, especially people who run around 08, 09 thinking housing is always going to go up.
Yeah.
And we finally just got back to where in most markets we are crossing where housing was in 0405. I mean, it took that long. It took 10 years to rebound,
Yeah.
from that 0809 to get back to the levels that we were at the peak, which was 0405. So
Yeah.
that was
For my
that was the
market,
first.
Fresno, it took 14 years sort of
Mhm.
trough to match the peak uh,
Yeah.
of our market. And I think our market peaked in 06. Yeah.
And again, it's all interest rates. If interest rates were 4 or 5%, we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing. It's all interest rates, and it's millennials who are driving the pony. That's who the bulk of the buyers are. And that's, they haven't been through that cycle. All they're seeing is, man, it's cheaper to buy than it is to rent because of interest rates. And, they're not worried about necessarily making money on a house long-term, all that. They just want the house in the yard, and they're starting to have kids, and,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
And again, let's be clear, right? I think that's just natural life, right? If you're millennials now are in their 30s. My daughter is a millennial. She'll be turning 30 this year. And, that happens as it happened to you, as it happened to me, Gen Xers way back in the day, right? And again, if it is cheaper to buy than rent, by all means. And oh, by the way, you get more space, not a bad, and you get 30-year money. A millennial locking in today at 3%, 30-year money is going to be smiling ear to ear in 2 years.
Yeah. And the question is, like my mom, okay, she's been in that house 21 years. She doubled her money. She bought it at 250, sold it at 525. So she doubled, and it's a lifetime capital gains exclusion. So she doesn't pay any capital gains. I don't know. I don't know if you can say all housing is going to be twice what it is 21 years from now than it is right now. I just don't know. I mean, we didn't see that for 14, like you said, to your point, 10, 14, 15 years in a lot of markets.
Yeah.
And some markets, they still haven't rebounded from 08, 09.
You're right.
So that's not always true in every market all the time. Kind of like stocks, if you look at the history of the stock market, it's up since the beginning of the stock market. And there's been times when it's, lost. And, again, take all the artificial, quantitative easing out of the picture. Where's the stock market? So, it's hard to say.
The thing that I'm really starting to play with, and again, it's because of these conversations with experts like yourself. Let's just take your mom's house and your mom's timeline in example. I'm going to put out a wild ass guess that 21 years ago, her first interest rate was probably above 10. I'm going to guess.
I don't know if it was that high at the time, because I was in my house. It was. So that was 21 years ago. So that's the
2000.
2000. Yeah. So that was 2000. So
about
go back to 2000.
Probably.
Rates weren't quite that high yet. 2000s, the rates were, they were in the sevens, because that's when I was doing a lot of deals. My construction interest was 9, 10% on construction loans back then, development loans, but permanent mortgages were in this, under 7 for most products. And I think, that's when I did one of my first, so 5%, you could still get 5% rates, but that's when that interest only stuff was coming along, and, no doc loans, and, all the subprime lending started taking off.
Oh, scary. But the reason I went back to that discussion is because what your mom enjoyed, and I'm wondering if it's like, to your point exactly, if it's most of the cause of her doubling, right? Let's just say interest rates were 6 when she locked in 30-year money. 21 years later, they're sub 3. And oh, by the way, prices went up, they doubled. Well, interest rate went in half and price doubled. To your point, the next 21 years, is there a good chance that rates go down a half, like in half again, right? They go from 3 to 1.5. I'm guessing that's not very likely.
I'm not sure that's possible, because again, rates are based on treasuries, and treasuries have to have a yield.
That's what I'm thinking.
If outside investors are buying it. Now, here's the interesting question. I thought about this the other day. This thought hit me. So what happens if the Fed becomes the only buyer of treasuries?
Oh, that's
everybody
a fear
else
I
is
have
gone
as well, right? I think Operation Twist is coming, where the Fed is the only buyer left at the window for 10 years, and they don't need a return. They don't have to make money. There's nothing in their charter that says they have to make interest. They could let the 10-year go negative if they wanted. I'm not saying they will, but I'm like, oh my God, what would that do, to your point?
Yeah. So then that's the only time you could potentially see rates for mortgages fall to that level, because then where are investors going? The only yield they have is mortgages at that point, and long-term debt instruments and debt paper. So that would be an interesting scenario. And
Yeah.
we could be reaching that point because the Fed doesn't want to let those treasury yields get too high.
Mhm.
So if they step in and start buying instead of, putting it to the outside markets, that's going to be an interesting thing to see happen. And I mean, we're pushing 2% on treasuries right now.
Yeah, 117 as of this morning. Yep. Yep. This has been a great conversation. Again, if you're a first-time home buyer, watch that. I call it a vibration, fear of missing out. I think if you're going to be in your forever home for 10 years, if you're going to have your kids go to kindergarten and graduate high school, it doesn't matter. Go get that 30-year debt. You'll be fine. But again, feeling bad for VA loans. I thought that was a great conversation. I don't think interest rates get cut in half again in a 21-year period, but maybe. So this is just a lot of fun to think about. Any closing thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, nothing. What did they say? All options are on the table. So it'll
Yeah,
be interesting to see how things shake out.
very cool, man. Thanks again.